This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a big edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you for the next couple hours, picking apart a dominant win over the St. Louis Blues last night at Canada Life Center for the Winnipeg Jets, who are now 5 points up on the Dallas Stars as their quest continues to lock down first place in the Central Division and the Western Conference, and who knows, potentially the President's Trophy as well. We're going to be all over it. Sean Reynolds is back from Ovi Watch. Looking forward to having Rennie on the program. We'll talk a little bit about his travels and what it was like following and being there for Ovi's record-breaking goal on the weekend. And, of course, we'll get Rennie's takes on the Jets, the win last night, and the big one coming up Thursday in Dallas against the Stars. A little later on, Murat of The Athletic will jump on as well. We'll get all the latest thoughts from Murat on the game last night, as well as the continued push to lock first place down, and a little look ahead to some potential playoff matchups as well. And then later on today on the program, former NHLer Kevin Westgarth, who's now a VP with the National Hockey League, is going to join us. And we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Frozen Four on the weekend. Now, the Jets do have a couple of players that are still alive, prospects, including Zach Naring, had a great freshman season with 30 points. But we'll also talk about, just get Kevin's thoughts on the changing landscape of developmental hockey, what that may or may not mean for the Canadian Hockey League, junior hockey here in Canada, as well as the pros and cons of what's happened in the NCAA with NIL money. And, of course, so many athletes going into the transfer portal. So we'll have that in the second hour of the show as well. And coming up towards the end when we dive into the Coolbet lines, we've got a busy day today. We'll give you details on how you can enter to take in some playoff action coming up in the next few weeks and throw the whites on, courtesy of Coolbet and your boys here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. So you're not going to want to miss that. Huge thanks to everybody listening on the podcast. Great to have you with us. And I see we've got a fiery chat already coming out of that game last night. I would expect no different. Welcome to everyone that's with us live on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And a huge thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our partners at Coolbet, of course, Princess Auto, the Prairie Toyota dealers, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery and Rollies Transfer, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to fan feedback for fans first. And, of course, a why not question of the day for the gang at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get this thing going, Remis. What a game last night. What a performance. That was... Listen, if there was anybody that was wondering whether this team's ready for the big games and what's to come in the playoffs, the Jets sure sent a very loud message to fans and the rest of the NHL last night with that 60-minute performance against the Blues.
What a game last night, Huss, at Canada Life Center. The Winnipeg Jets continue to be dominant at home, taking on the NHL's hottest team and, holding them to 15 shots against franchise record, 53rd win. Again, great performance by the Jets. Morgan Barron has looked so good transitioning to center. Kyle Connor comes up big with Alex Iafallo following up on the game-winning goal. And I got to be honest, yesterday a bit I used excuses, for injuries on Saturday's game. I was, no Ehlers, no Pionk, and no Velarde. And, Ehlers was a game-time decision, did not play. But the Jets train kept on rolling without them, and they just put up a dominant performance against the Blues for a franchise record 53rd win.
Yeah, I got into the building and, saw the guys come out for the beginning of the game before the Parkinson ceremony, and I'm kind of noticing that, okay, Nino is out with Perfetti and Vlad, and then see that Gus is in the lineup and Jared Anderson-Dolan's in the lineup and realize that's bad news. We're not getting Nikolai Ehlers tonight, and that was a little bit of a surprise considering the vibe that was coming out of the morning skate. But as you mentioned, Reem, everybody had a piece of that one last night. Connor Hellebuyck saw 15 shots last night, allowed 1 goal. And it's crazy to say this for the hype and what we expected last night from St. Louis. That might have been one of the most boring games for Connor Hellebuyck he's ever played because the ice was so tilted in Joel Hofer's direction last night. The Blues went through minutes at a time without getting anywhere close to the Winnipeg Jet net. And the way the team both defended in their own zone, but maybe more importantly, cycled the puck and controlled the play in the St. Louis end was exactly what Scott Arniel, we'll hear from the head coach coming up as well. But listen, we've talked about it all year long. The entire season's not going to be perfect. And the team has had some games where, they look back and I'm sure went over video and weren't particularly pleased with the way that they played. I would suggest that Saturday in Utah would certainly be one of those games. But night after night, this team manages to rebound from poor performances. And maybe most importantly, Remis, certainly when you're looking at, firing up the optimism for going into the playoff for a different result than the last couple seasons, the way that they've raised their level against the best teams in the league continues to impress. And that was one of the most impressive team performances, certainly from a defensive standpoint, we've seen all season long.
Yeah, just checking out the Money Puck Deserve to Win-O-meter. I don't know if this is a record for the Jets this year, but they did 81.5%, and you could argue, that seems kind of low.
Yeah,
seems kind of low, but the Jets season just has had incredible performances all year. Players hitting career highs. Adam Lowry, 16th goal, setting career high. The Jets setting a franchise record in wins. Mark Scheifele tying career high in points, and Connor Hellebuyck tying a franchise, his own franchise record with a 44th win. And I agree with what you said because you see some bad losses, and we talked about the last time they lost bad. It was against Utah, and they ripped off a huge win streak. So they lost again to Utah. That seems to be like the Jets, recipe for success here. Lose to Utah and then just elevate your game, pull it up to another level and just have a dominant performance there against the St. Louis team that had been running over everyone. And you have everyone, playing together, playing, Winnipeg Jets hockey. It was really incredible to watch how they suffocated the Blues. And, credit to the Blues because there were some numbers, as much as the Jets were dominating them in the first period, they had trouble getting shots on goal at all. So, the Blues hung in there as long as they could. Joel Hofer, solid when he needed to be, but the Winnipeg Jets just a bit better. And just a really nice play off the boards there for Kyle Connor to get the shot on goal. And Alex Iafallo, first star of the game, he's fit in, had some great games there on that top line, getting the winner.
Iafallo has really, really done a great job filling in the big shoes of Gabe Velarde. He's a different player, not quite as dynamic offensively, but understands what makes him effective. And listen, great stick, really tenacious defensively. I think has really added something for the 200-foot game to that line. And we've seen this over and over again since he joined Connor and Scheifele. AI knows where to be to score goals, and that's getting in in and around in front of the net. When you're playing with talented players like that, you know there's going to be offensive chances. And, once again, being willing to pay the price against that big St. Louis defense, he was there and able to pop that in. I thought he had a great game. He was the first star of the game last night. But Reem, I want to give some love to the fourth line. Obviously, Morgan Barron's goal to get there was a time the Jets were dominating so much, and you're kind of feeling okay, at what point are they going to score, or does Joel Hofer start getting in their heads? Because I thought Hofer was really solid early on and looked like he was very, very confident in that game. But the Barron goal really set the Jets going. Now, to St. Louis's credit, they did get back on the board. They did not have a lot of opportunities, but they made the most of the one that tied the game up. But there was no wilt at all from the Winnipeg Jets. They continued to do what they were doing shift after shift after shift, and that fourth line was a big, big part of it. I mean, the amount of love that Brandon Tanev is getting is entirely deserved, Remis, but that felt like a real Brandon Tanev game. I thought the penalty that he took was a little cheesy, but he was making an impact. He was hitting. He was skating. He was, and listen, maybe we shouldn't have been as surprised at that, at least for people that were watching on Amazon Prime. Did you see the close-ups of Tanev during warm-up?
Oh my God, man! that face that he makes in the picture. I don't think that's an act. That's him getting ready for the game, and they highlighted him on Amazon Prime. I really enjoyed the broadcast last night. Some good, nice intermission features as well, including Kevin Shoveldayoff. But yeah, Brandon Tanev's come in as advertised. I had flashbacks to Eric Tangradi on his blocks. When Tanev was, flopping all over. But I should actually be saying I was having flashbacks to 2018 Brandon Tanev when he was last on the Jets. And, it just looks right seeing him in a Winnipeg Jets uniform. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I think Kevin Shoveldayoff did maybe we would have liked to seen, a couple more moves, but I think the moves that he did make, were perfect fits for the team and Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev. And Tanev really, brought the energy last night.
There was a lot of energy in the building, and he was not short on any of it, as he never is on the ice last night. Jared Anderson-Dolan, I thought, had a really good game as well. He was hitting everything that moved. That line had a couple of shifts, Remis, where they owned the puck in the St. Louis end, created some scoring chances, did not let St. Louis get the puck back, and I don't know how many times it happened where the Jets were actually able to change lines, or at least partially change lines, while still maintaining possession in the St. Louis zone. I mean, top to bottom, certainly up front, everybody did their part. Team defense, defending, forechecking, and then the blue line. And hey, hand up, I when we learned that Colin Miller was out last night, I will be the first to admit that I was a little concerned about how the Jet blue line would hold up. Obviously the Stanley Fleury pairing didn't look great when they were together in their last occasion, and there were some mistakes that cost the Jets dearly. I was blown away that they started last night's game. And I'll tell you what, they made the coaching staff look pretty good. Josh Morrissey was incredible, played over 25 minutes, was certainly the guy that was leading the attack for Winnipeg, shall we say, from the blue line, played some big minutes. I thought Luke Schenn was really good yesterday as well. But that third pairing acquitted themselves well. I mean, I think every defenseman from 1 to 6 last night came ready to play, Remis, and that's exactly what the Winnipeg Jets are going to need, because you'll have injuries. They're without Pionk. They're without Colin Miller last night. Guys that might not be your first choice are still guys that are going to have to be in and play. And, that 5-6 pairing, which, as I said, made me a little nervous going in. I thought both of those guys had great games, but man, Josh Morrissey, Dylan DeMello logging the big minutes. Josh in particular, just phenomenal last night.
Yeah, Josh Morrissey showing that he is, number one defenseman, one of the top in the league. And we said, on the show yesterday, he's going to have to play a lot of minutes, and there he was with over 25. And I think Hayden Fleury it's kind of been about consistency. You've come in, you've had a couple games, but then when you play a couple more, the consistency just is not there. But he had some games off and stepped in, played 13:44. pretty nice, him and Stan pairing on the third pair. And Luke Shen, 1804, Sandberg, 2006. And yeah, it was all about DeMello and Morrissey. DeMello, playing even more than Morrissey, 25-54. So just a stifling defensive performance. Talked a bit about the Jets special teams. Well, there weren't really many opportunities. They went 0 for 1, and the Blues, the Jets PK was perfect, going 2 for 2. So a nice, tidy win last night, Hustler. The crowd, yet another sellout, which has been great to see. The fan support for sure. And I know that's going to continue here as we head towards the playoffs. But first, they got to wrap up this Central Division title, Western Conference title, President's Trophy. Like, I'm reading the sentences saying, the Jets are 3 ahead of Washington for the President's Trophy, which is crazy to see. But, the other teams are running out of runway to catch Winnipeg. And, biggest game of the year Thursday, but then you have very winnable games coming up against Chicago on Saturday and Anaheim to end the season. And we'll see what Edmonton Oilers team shows up here, next week, because they've been dealing with their injuries of their own. So
yeah, Dusty said he can't remember the Oilers being as banged up as they are in the last 2 or 3 years. And bottom line is, if 97 and 29 are in the lineup, that is not the same team, not even close. So yeah, Sunday will be interesting. But listen, if the Jets win their next 2 games, that game's not going to matter. We said last night going in, if they can win 3 in a row, they're first place in the West. The 1 down, 2 to go, and the big one, of course, is this game with the Dallas Stars on Thursday. Listen, we're going to hear from Arniel in just a minute. I do want to quickly say one thing, Reem, and this is for those of you that were at the building last night. I think we may need to start doing some old Section S tactics in the stands with some of this at the end of the game. Why are people in such a hurry to leave? Like, that was such a great game, such an awesome atmosphere. It's 2-1. The Jets get the empty netter in, the final minute, and everyone just runs to the doors. I do not understand. I mean, I guess there's some people that are, if you wait a while, it takes a while to get out of parking or whatever. But, I mean, it was so much fun being there. The first Stars, the interview afterwards, the vibe in the building. I hope for the other games, and certainly in the playoffs, that people aren't in so much of a hurry to get somewhere else and they stick around and be a part of the wins, because that was the only thing missing there at the end of the game was about 7,000 or 8,000 people that seemed to be in such a rush to get to their cars that they didn't stick around for the exclamation mark on the point on the victory for Winnipeg.
Yeah, I enjoy watching the 3 Stars, giving the salute. And I see, who is it? Dan Jets fan mentioning he enjoys the Sarah interview at the end, with the player of the game or whoever it may be. So I don't know, Huss, what you're going to do there. People want to get home.
Shake your keys. Like, when people start doing that, just give them the old Section S. Hey, beat the Blues, not the traffic. Come on, people. Anyways, I just wanted to get that out. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I got to remember to mention this on the show tomorrow. So there's my PSA today to fellow Winnipeg Jet fans. Let's hear from the coach. Listen, Scott Arniel wasn't very pleased after Saturday's game. A lot more after Monday's game against the St. Louis Blues. Here's the head coach on his team's dominating performance.
It was a really solid 60 minutes of, going out in 5-man units and out battling and, getting zone time on the opposition. Everybody kind of figured out after the first period who their matchups were, who they were going head to head, and I thought all 4 lines won their matchups, and along with the D-men, obviously. And you know what? When you do that with 20 guys doing that, that's that's a tough team to beat.
How did you spend so much of that first period in their zone?
We got on our forecheck is one way. We didn't. We got pucks through the neutral zone. They've done a really good job watching them the last few games. Obviously on their streak. they've turned pucks over a lot, especially through that neutral zone area. And you know what, this Central Division teams, each other pretty well, and we just tried to make sure that we got pucks down below the hash marks and made them really have to work and try to get us to, try to force us or them to make mistakes, force them to make mistakes, keep them in that. We did a good job of spreading that zone out.
All right, so there's a very pleased Scott Arniel with his team's performance last night. Listen, I thought Scheifele, Connor, and Iafallo, had a huge game. I mean, they, like most of the Winnipeg Jets, spent the majority of their time in the other team's end. They created the winning goal, and they were going up against the top line on St. Louis. Here's what Arnie had to say about their top line going up against the Blues' best last night.
Been one of the best lines. I'm talking about, that Thomas line has been one of the best lines here since coming over the Four Nations. And, I love the fact when Scheif and those guys go up against the other team's top line and do what they do. That was it was a good goal that they scored. Just a bang play. But the fact that they came back, and scored against them as well. The zone time for that, our top five, they were out against, they were in their end of the rink and forcing them to defend. And when you can force the opposition's top six forwards to play in their end of the rink, it goes a long way towards success.
All right, now, some love for the top line, but as I mentioned earlier on, loved what the fourth line did last night. And, of course, Morgan Barron, huge goal last night. And he continues to grow into a guy they can count on in the middle, taking advantage of his size, but especially his speed, which was on display last night. Arnie kind of expanded a little bit on what he's seen from Morgan Barron, his transition to playing in the middle.
He's always said he's a natural centerman, but I think everybody was when they were playing junior or college. But no, you know what? He's taken on this role, and he is just, he's embraced it. Shown us a lot of really good things, strong on draws. You see some more of his speed. Seems to come out of the middle. You see a lot more of his speed, and just doing the right things. He's playing heavy, playing hard. I like that move. Instead of bailing out and going behind the net, sticks his leg out and drives inside, and that's those for big power forwards. You like to see guys do that.
How important is it to have, you mentioned his speed, he's got the speed, but also once he gets into the zone, he's really strong at holding on to pucks and forechecking. That sort of blend, it's kind of rare to find in a lot of fourth line centers, is it not?
Well, I think that, obviously there's some good ones around the league, but I think when it comes to the part of holding on to pucks, we emphasize that, don't just throw pucks away, have a plan. Obviously different teams, if somebody's man on man or other teams are playing forms, you got to move it quick. But when they have size like that, you guys have asked me about Gabe, or you've asked me about Lau. I mean, those big body guys, when they use their size and their length of their stick to kind of protect the puck, they're hard to play against.
Nice praise for Morgan Barron. He also mentioned Adam Lowry, who of course had the empty netter, a career-high 16th goal on the season, but just played a huge role in locking down the St. Louis Blues last night. One other part of the fourth line that was everywhere was Brandon Tanev. As we talked about earlier on the program, here's what Arnie had to say about Tanev's game last night.
Yeah, we Energizer Bunny. I mean, he just go. A couple of big hits in that first period, some real big hits. They're against the Shen line, another top-end line, and I thought they did a great job, him being physical. They had some D looking over the shoulder when they're going back to get pucks, and then obviously, penalty kill, big shot block. He just does it. He stays it. It doesn't matter if he gets hit once, twice, or three times. He's going to jump back in that lane.
All right, so there's some love for Brandon Tanev, who had a monster game last night and was literally everywhere when he was out on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, as Michael mentioned earlier, that was a special win for Winnipeg, not only one they desperately needed as they looked to lock down first place, but also a franchise record, 53rd win of the season. Here's Scott Arniel on his team achieving that milestone in, of course, his first year as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets.
It's gratifying, but it's stuff for after the year. We're still after something here. We're still trying to get that division, and this was another step towards it. It's amazing that we're at game 53 and we still haven't clinched the division. That's how good our division is. So it's just move off of this one, move on to the next one. We'll go down and do our business down in Dallas. But you know what? It's a great accomplishment. But like we keep talking about, I know you guys don't like to hear it. It's move on, part of business, get on to the next one.
All right, so there's Jets head coach Scott Arniel. And Reem, Arnie was reserved, was very complimentary to his club. Considering the importance of that game and the way they played, I'm sure it was a pretty excited coach's room afterwards, even just for a little bit before they move on for getting ready for the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, Scott Arniel taking press conference lessons from Bill Belichick here. Ask about the franchise record for wins. Should be pumped. He said, you know what, we're just concerned about the next game against Dallas. There's always another game these coaches are worried about. We'll reflect at the end of the season. So I would imagine a lot of excitement. I mean, when you look at, teams that have had great success, in the playoffs, you have a lot of guys having career years. And I think you're seeing that with the Jets. This year, as we mentioned, Adam Lowry, Kyle Connor is up there, in points as well. Could he even set franchise record for points? He's got 92. I think it's going to be, I don't know if he'll get there, but I mean, one of the best seasons that we've seen. Mark Scheifele, 84 points, 2 40-goal scorers in Connor and Scheifele. But I mean, down the list, Ehlers having a career year, Velarde, Cole Perfetti, Sandberg, Adam Lowry. So many guys have a hand in this season, and I agree, there'll definitely be some, reflecting, I don't know if at the end of the season or in a couple years, about how special this whole thing was, and hopefully it continues for longer than the last two. But I don't think there's any shame in celebrating, a regular season, even if, it's celebrating, a regular season if it ultimately doesn't result in a Stanley Cup.
Hey, listen, 82 games is a long grind, and to be at the top of the league all year and having teams coming at you is, listen, nobody predicted that at the beginning of the season. So, while Arnie did sort of laugh and say, 53 wins, and we've still got work to do to win our division, just goes to show how solid and stacked the Central is right now. But even when you look at the West, Edmonton's got McDavid and Draisaitl. We know what Dallas has. We are very well aware of what Colorado has. And I'm here for that argument that maybe the top-end players on a few of the other teams might exceed what Winnipeg has. But the Winnipeg Jets have done this all year long as something that's probably greater than the sum of its parts. And they've been doing it by getting contributions up and down the lineup. They've been doing it with getting world-class goaltending from Connor Hellebuck, which goes without saying. But last night, that sort of a team performance, will make the Jets a tough out no matter who they play and when they play them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, obviously, Scott Arniel's got a lot to think about heading into Thursday night, but I'm sure they cracked one after the game in that coach's room, and were pretty darn pleased with the performance that their team put forward. We mentioned Morgan Barron, huge goal last night. Here's what he had to say about the big win for his club.
Yeah, I think that's how we want to play. Obviously, it's a really good team in transition. And, I think we kind of knew when we were at the top of our game, we were able to stymie that the best we could. And I thought our D just gapped up really nicely, and forwards tracked back really well.
All right. Now, just there's a little bit more from Barron. I know the line questioning was to Scott Arniel about the move to center. Here's what Bear had to say about continuing to play in the middle and obviously being a big part of that win last night.
Yeah, obviously it's a little bit of a change, but kind of been able to do it in the past. So, no, it felt like it's been a pretty smooth transition. And, I feel like I'm playing my best hockey of the year right now, which is kind of what you want to do. And, obviously as a team, I think we've had a few efforts there in the last couple of weeks we haven't loved, but overall I really like where our game's at. So, just kind of move into the playoffs here, a few more games, and get ready to go.
You shut down a team like that, allow only one goal. We're used to be talking about Connor Hellebuck, but he was sort of like the Maytag repairman last night, the chairman of the board with the way the team played in front of him. That being said, still made some big saves when the team needed it. Here's what Morgan Barron had to say about their Vezina Trophy winner in the net.
Yeah, you know what, he always jokes about timely saves. That's what he always says in the video, and there's a big save he makes, and I think that's what he did tonight. As much as I think we did defend well, he made some huge saves at big times. That one there on, I think it was Buchnevich at the end of the game, those are huge for us. He's been great all year, so we want to defend the best we can in front of him, and just let him make the saves he needs to make.
There is Morgan Barron. There's actually one more clip from Barron, and this is just, about the team and the way they came together and played together last night. Here's what he had to say on that.
Even in the room, I know Schenner's obviously a really vocal guy since he got here, but you often hear him, great job forwards, great job backtracking. That's this gap up, and that's reassuring for us, and I think it's reassuring for them. So you're absolutely right. I think it's kind of turns into a snowball rolling down the hill, and kind of gain some momentum and keep helping each other out, and that's when we're playing our best hockey for sure.
All right, so there is Morgan Barron. We'll hear a little from Kyle Connor coming up in a few minutes as well. Listen, the Ren Dog's just about ready to go. Before we do that, hey, folks, if you have a move planned coming up in the spring or summer this year, why don't you hit up our friends at Rolly's Transfer, great sponsors of WST, family-owned in Winnipeg for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving here in Manitoba. Pop on over to their website at rollys.com. In the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate and let them know where you're planning on moving, when you'd like to go, and what needs to be moved. And don't forget to put WST in the promo code for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rolly's is famous for. For your next move, make it Rolly's. Tell them the boys at WST sent you. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. Okay, we've talked a lot about spring cleaning, spring here right now. Do you need a spring cleaning for your grill? If it's been a minute since you've been to the dentist, it might be time to do that. And if you're looking for a great dentist for you and your family, pop on down to the St. Vital Dental Center. Our pal Dr. Terry and his amazing staff are waiting for you in a beautiful new facility with convenient free parking right behind the building and a full array of dental services with everything from checkups, teeth cleaning, fillings, root canals, all the way to dental surgeries and dental implants. Find out more on everything St. Vital Dental Center can do for you, as they've been doing for generations of Winnipeggers, at stvitaldental.ca, or pop by and see him at 167 St. Anne's. I know there's a few people downtown cheersing each other after that big game last night. And if you're a whiskey fan, you're thinking Canadian whiskey, you're thinking the best. The iconic, the original Canadian Club since 1848. Available at your local Manitoba liquor marts, along with the Canadian Club 100% Rye, Canadian Club Classic, and of course, as we get ready for some sunny days, Canadian Club Premix Cocktail with ginger ale, available at your local beer vendors as well. And hey, we're counting down the days before we'll be cheersing CCs with fellow Bomber fans out of Princess Auto Stadium as the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And just before we bring in Sean, the Jets did not have any battery issues last night. The Blues may have, because they got short-circuited by Winnipeg. For all your battery needs, Manitoba Battery's there to allow you to shop local, save money with the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, and the best customer service as well. 2 locations to serve you for Manitoba Battery, Logan Avenue and Dovercourt Drive. But with your busy schedule, you might have not have time to get down there. Well, guess what? Just give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com, and they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. For all your battery needs, keep it local and get the best prices in town at Manitoba Battery today. All right, let's get into last night's game and a look ahead to a big one against the Stars on Thursday. Returning home after OV duty for the last couple weeks, it is our buddy Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet. Ren, what's going on? How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. Hold on a sec. We just got to fix. We got the echo on there, Reem. Going to need to tweak that.
Yeah, I'll fix it. 1 sec.
Of course, if people were not aware, Sean did have to do. Listen, I gave him props on the show last week, but the 2:30 a.m. Eastern time start for Kenny and Rennie last week. I sent you a text, Sean. You were working hard, but still bringing it for Winnipeg Jet fans with Kenny afterwards. So great to have you back, and I hope you've had a chance just to relax a little bit after what must have been a crazy couple weeks for you.
I had the messages from the wife this morning because the Jets had the day off. So she was about to call the police to come over to see if I was still going because slept until 11:30 this morning. That's a time I haven't been able to do since I was back in the teenage days. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's just when you were on that chase, there was no, you couldn't set up in a city, right? Like they didn't have a 5-game homestand or everything. Everything was like, go to a game in Minnesota, then fly the next day, go to Washington, then to Boston, then to Carolina, back to Washington, eventually up to New York. So it was a bit of a grind. And sometimes when you get in that grind, it especially, adding that extra layer of K&R to it and the lack of sleep that created. Got home here, saw the wife, saw the kids, saw the animals, finally got to sleep. And when I did, I was a little bit dead to the world. So hopefully those batteries, hey, had the battery analogies going on. So hopefully the batteries are recharged. I'm back at it now.
Well, listen, just before we get to the Jets, because I think we'll kind of dive into that and won't be getting off of it. That must have been really fun. I mean, you've done some really cool things. You've been to Cup finals, you've been to that. But, I mean, you were there as Alex Ovechkin chased history. He almost got it on Friday night. He had 2 great moment in DC, and then they didn't make it wait any longer. Sunday afternoon in New York. We had Thomas Hickey on from the Amazon broadcast yesterday. He talked about being in the building, but just quick memories for the listeners on what it was like to be there for $8.95.
I think for me, it was just kind of the slow realization of how big that was. And I talked about it a little bit on the podcast last night. I can be a little bit of a put on the blinders and just go do the job, which I think is a good way to do the job when there's all of this. We're in the business of going around and covering amazing things. You talked about Cup finals. I was at that Tom Brady miracle Super Bowl comeback. I covered Usain Bolt's only ever loss on the track, right? Like there's all these kind of really big moments where things are happening and you kind of can't get swept away in the moment. You've got a job to do. But this time around, as he was slowly closing in, and maybe it's the fashion in which he did it, Huss, that was so amazing. Like the way he basically just, from the point that he was in Winnipeg, and then from that point on, just maintained a goal per game pace on the way to hunting down this record. You just kind of started to be like, this is uncanny what's happening. It's uncanny that anyone would catch this record. It was just wild the way in which he tracked down and caught that record. And then for me, it's just, as always, like when you get out and you talk with the fans, I did a couple of hits and, Caps fans, great, really welcoming, inviting people. So that game that he had 2 to tie it, being in that building, the way that they were certain they were going to witness history that night, the way he delivered history, that was just, as far as theater and as far as watching hockey play out on the ice, that was as crazy a story as you could imagine telling, and being around for the energy of that. Like it was, in a way, it was almost bigger than being in a place where a Stanley Cup was won, because, a Stanley Cup is handed out every year. A record like this, I think 5 people have held this record before Ovechkin in the history of the game. So it was almost bigger than a Stanley Cup being handed out, because, only a certain amount of fans are ever going to see something like that in their lifetime. So it was, I soaked it up by the end of it. I'm glad I did.
Well, it was great. You still brought it late night for those games last week. And listen, there's been lots to talk about with the Jets. You mentioned Ovechkin hunting down that record. How about the way the Jets hunted down the St. Louis Blues last night? I mean, you said Connor Hellebuck, chairman of the board last night. I mean, there were periods of time where it would go 10, 15 minutes without anything happening around him. I mean, just an incredible performance by the Jets, coming off a bit of a dud and a big missed opportunity Saturday night in Utah.
Yeah, that whole chairman of the board comment, that could be, I mean, that can describe Connor Hellebuck for maybe 60% of his starts this year. Like, this Winnipeg Jets team has done a really good job making it tidy business for him. The big question, Huss, that everyone has been asking all season, and will not be answered until the playoffs. We're getting close to that time, but people want to know the Winnipeg Jets, who have always been so impressive in the regular season for the most part, and then seem to not have it when it comes playoff time. That's the question. People want to know if that's the case this year, and you're trying to find signs of it. And I think the two biggest signs that I've seen this year are when they need those big games, right? The last time they played Dallas, right? That one that they just played against Vegas after getting kind of handed to them by the Florida Panthers, coming out and bouncing back against them. When the Jets have needed to deliver, when it's one of those games that we walked in and said to ourselves and as journalists said in commentary, this is a big one. This is going to say a lot of who the Winnipeg Jets are. The Winnipeg Jets have shown us throughout this year that when the big games happen and they matter most, they show up. That game last night against the Blues, what it shows me is, and I described this a couple years back, I saw the Tampa Bay Lightning fall down 3-2 in a series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in games 6 and 7, they just did not give the Leafs a sniff. They just played this shutdown brand of dominant hockey where they just would not allow shooting lanes. They didn't allow traffic in front of the net. You were not going to win that game because you were not given the opportunity to win that game. Some of these other games that the Jets have played against, these other teams, they've rolled over them, and maybe that team wasn't necessarily showing their best. I don't think it was Vegas's best punch the other night. Some of those games, maybe something breaks their way and, they get the right balance at the right time. But that game last night was a no-doubter. St. Louis, the hottest team in the league, a very capable team, came in and I don't think played a bad game. I just don't think that there was a chance for them to possibly win that game. And I think if the Jets can bottle that, which they bottled the jump up and have that proper effort at the right times against the right teams this year, if you can bottle that game where it's just quite simply we play so solidly defensively, we don't allow zone entries, we don't allow you to control the puck coming in, you don't get to shoot on our goaltender, this is the kind of game that if you need a win in the playoffs, you're down 3-2, you need to extend that series, you go play that game, you're going to win. You're going to win unless something crazy happens and a puck bounces in a strange manner. You're going to win that game if you play like that. And that's a tool that I think, ultimate winning hockey players have and are able to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that was the winning formula for the Winnipeg Jets. And in the end, it didn't matter that Nikolai Ehlers wasn't in the lineup last night. And certainly they're missing Gabe Vilardi and Neil Pionk. I mean, everybody stuck to the plan. And I got to give Arniel some credit. And we're going to get into this with Murat a little later on. But, Arniel looks at the matchups that he wants. He got them last night, and they never needed to stray off it at all because, I mean, there really wasn't any unit for the Blues that had any significant advantage almost at any point over the Jets. I was a little worried about the blue line going into last night, particularly with Colin Miller out. Having to go with Stanley and Fleury on that third pairing. And then they were out there starting the game last night, Rennie. And listen, 1-6, every defenseman had a strong game. But holy smokes, Josh Morrissey. I mean, we talk about looking ready for prime time and ready for the playoffs. That was a performance by their number one defense leading the way, and the rest of the guys in the blue line, I think, following Josh's example.
It's hard to find time on our podcast in these spaces to talk about Josh Morrissey because his level never drops off. So it's like walking outside and trying to comment on the sky being blue. He's phenomenal. He is every single time. He rarely lets you down. I can think of one game this year that maybe we thought, okay, Josh Morrissey had a little bit of an off night, and it was the first game against the Washington Capitals, and he scored the game-winning goal in overtime in that game. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is just constantly delivering, so it's hard to find space in podcasts to talk about him because you would just be saying the same thing over and over and over again. But there you are, big game last night. You need Josh Morrissey. He shows up and shows once again he's one of the premier defensemen in the NHL. And I wanted to talk about this on the podcast last night. We didn't get to it. It's funny how quick an hour goes by, but Scott Arniel, I want to make sure that he's given credit for this in this situation. Jim Montgomery is a phenomenal coach, and what he's done, hey, took the Boston, did a really good job with Dallas when he was there, made them a really hard team. They came closest to knocking off the St. Louis Blues in 2019. Double overtime, they lost to the St. Louis Blues before St. Louis Blues ended up going to win the Cup, so he was close there. He took the Boston Bruins after they lost some key players to the greatest regular season anyone has ever seen before, and basically who knows what would have happened if they wouldn't have lost in the first round against the Florida Panthers, who, if you go back and look at that series, scored every single key goal at key times along the way. Like, they were done in that series. Who knows what would have happened in Boston, and now has come to St. Louis and totally turned that team around. Jim Montgomery is a phenomenal coach. He's changed the way that St. Louis Blues team played. The very first time they played St. Louis after Jim Montgomery came in, he came in with a game plan and they got the Jets. The next time they played, they had the Jets. The Jets needed a little bit of that Florida Panthers last minute miracle to get out of that game. This was a game where I think Scott Arniel showed us that he game planned for the changes that Jim Montgomery had made with this St. Louis Blues team. And I think that's important because there's potential for these two teams to play each other in the first round. If they do play each other in the first round, and I'm a Winnipeg Jet player, what I know is the last time, or there were a couple times that the St. Louis Blues challenged us, and they're right there with us. And let's be honest, that's a third period goal that the Jets, got out and get. It's a close game. It's a 2-1 game. You know what I mean? Even though I think the Blues got dominated, they were still right there. But if I'm the Winnipeg Jets, I walk away from this saying our coach took that coach who's been going around and building game plans and dissecting teams and beating teams down the road here, and our coach out-coached their coach in that game.
Yeah, well, they didn't have an answer for the Jets, and I'm glad you brought up Montgomery. Here's what Monty had to say after the game last night. I think Bombing got this in the visiting dressing room after the game. Give this a listen.
The way Winnipeg has been playing as of late, losing 2 of their last 3 coming in, are you expecting this kind of effort from them?
Yes, they're very committed defensively, one of the best teams, and then they have one of the best, if not, well, he's going to win the best now this year, so speaks for itself. So they've done a great job all year. They're the measuring stick in the West.
Some pretty high praise for the Jets, the measuring stick in the West. Now, whether people buy that or when they're looking at, who they think is going to do well in the playoffs, the Jets, I think, still have a lot to prove, but that was a performance last night, I think, that shows why people, and important people, like the head coaches of other playoff teams, have the respect they do for what Winnipeg's put together through 78 games.
Yeah, Monty is just stating the obvious, right? And it's sometimes you're in a market like this, and we cover this team all the time, and I think sometimes you have this tendency to wonder what the rest of the league is thinking, and in the end, I assert this. You don't need to wonder what the rest of the league is thinking. Like, Winnipeg has shown us time and time again. He talked about them being one of the most committed teams defensively. I've said this before. The Jets are the result of a collection of players all committed to doing the right thing over and over and over and over again. And all those little moves adding up to a mountain that is hard for other teams to climb and hard for other teams to conquer. He's saying the obvious, and they are. Right now, if you want to take a look at this down the stretch, the other teams, and I'm not saying this means that the Jets waltz to the Stanley Cup final. We have still, and I'll say this, I said it on the podcast last night. Everyone, to me, last year when the Jets got smoked by the Colorado Avalanche, I had so many Jets fans say to me, well, that team is just cruising to a Stanley Cup win. And I was like, I don't think they win their next round against Dallas. And I don't know that Dallas wins their next round after that. Everyone is just so used to seeing a team in the regular season and thinking, okay, this is who everybody is. And that's not the case. Everyone is their best version, or trying to get to, and a lot of teams do, the best version of themselves. So I'm not saying that there's not potential for the Dallas Stars or the Colorado Avalanche or the Edmonton Oilers or the Vegas Golden Knights to take their game to a place the Jets just can't take it to. But a measuring stick right now is something that we've been able to measure. And on every front, I think the Winnipeg Jets have left no doubt in my mind that in the league, they are the team that has set the standard. It's not just how they've shown in points. It's the fact that we can't look at this season and say, like a lot of people would say, well, they got that hot start at the beginning of the season. They just rode that hot start. The Jets didn't do that. They've been good in the middle of the season. They've been good towards the end of the season when they've needed, like we've said, when it's like big marquee games, heavyweight title fight. Who's going to show up in this game? The Jets do that every single time. So Jim Montgomery is just stating what I think is the obvious, and I think it's obvious to everyone else around the league. And if you're looking for similar coaching clips to that, Spencer Carberry, if you want to see how he talked about the Winnipeg Jets after they were in town, like Spencer Carberry, when he talked, and this is the guy who is this is the guy coaching the team closest to the Jets in winning the President's Trophy. Spencer Carberry, very clear to me in his comments, was like, that's a team that is in a place that we have yet to get to, right? And it didn't matter that they were first in the league for a good chunk of the time that he was saying that. Spencer Carberry looks at the Winnipeg Jets and says, boy, they're doing a whole bunch of things that I'm still trying to get my team to do. The Jets are locked in. Last night's a perfect example of it. Monty's just pointing out the obvious.
Well, it brings us to Thursday night, Ren. We've kind of had this one circled for a while and knew that it was probably going to be a really important game. I mean, the Jets have put themselves in a really, really good situation, and a win. I mean, listen, if they win their next two games, they're first and they can get ready for the playoffs. But the Dallas Stars are going to be looking to, do their part to not make it easy for the Winnipeg Jets. What do you make of the challenge coming up Saturday night in Dallas for the Jets as they look to put their clamps down on the top spot?
Yeah, when I look at all these things, like I've looked at it really analytically in the past. I talked about this on the podcast last night. Like the year that the Jets missed the playoffs, it was obvious that they were missing the playoffs, and it was a done deal. And, you're on the podcast and people are like saying, well, this could happen, that could happen. And it's like, no, they're not going to put together an 800 win percentage down the stretch to make it into the playoffs. And the other team is not going to go from playing 727 down to 500. Like, that's just not the way these things work. Do miracles happen? Yeah, I don't want to take that away from people. And could that happen? Yeah, but like the other year when the Jets were first in the West in January and then almost fell out of the playoffs, the numbers told us that wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. Just like the numbers told us that, yes, the Dallas Stars didn't have had a bit of a weak schedule down the stretch here, but you're still going to lose some of those games. The numbers tell us that. The numbers tell us the Jets have won. Okay, the Jets are first place in the league. I'm operating under that assumption. There's no drama in this for me. Even if the Winnipeg Jets, I'm telling you right now, there's zero drama to me in this. The Winnipeg Jets have won the West, and it's done in my mind. And even if, and I know you're going to say that I'm jinxing it. I say the truth out loud. I did it all those other years. People were saying I was going to jinx the Jets and they were going to fall out of the playoffs. Listen. Even if they lose to Dallas in this next game, they still win. They still win the division. For me, the drama is over. There's too much of a mountain to climb. Trying to make up 5 points in 4 games is insane. Those kind of things don't happen. Has it happened before? Sure. As a sports fan, are you so worried that the impossible could happen? Yes. I'm not, because I've removed the emotions from this. Analytically, this thing is done. So is it going to be a great game? I think the Jets are going to come out and they're going to show. But if they lose in that game, I'm not turning around and saying, well, this is all falling apart.
Like, you realize that if they beat Vancouver tonight, and they're a big favorite, and win on Thursday, you wake up on Friday morning with a 1-point lead.
Yeah, and it's if. And
Hey,
what we've seen...
I love the confidence. I love the confidence, Red.
What we've seen is that even if that did happen, let's say that scenario played out, the expectation is that, Dallas is probably going to lose one of those last 3 games that they play. I believe one of them is against Colorado, right? Against a team they're probably going to play in the first round, and there's going to be a little bit of a war and a little bit of a message sending there. So that's not an easy game. And this is the other thing for me, when it comes down to it, Huss, if that happens and there's a 1 point advantage, what are we going to expect happens to the Winnipeg Jets? They're going to go into a game and they're going to be like, well, we need this one. And what's going to happen? From what we know of the Jets this year, are they going to freeze up and crumble in that game? Or are the Winnipeg Jets going to do what they've shown us time and time and time again that they do? That they're like, we need our best effort in this one. Let's go out and do it. And they'll walk away with a victory like they did the last time they played Dallas, like they did the last time against St. Louis, like they did in that bounce back game against Florida. We know who the Winnipeg Jets are, and they're not a team that is going to blow this lead.
Well, I love it. It's not Colorado. It's Utah, Detroit, Nashville.
Okay.
After Winnipeg.
Right.
So no playoff teams. But again, like we saw on the weekend, I mean, they'd run off all those games, and then all of a sudden you lose at home to Pittsburgh, and you only get 1 point. And with you, like, there's a lot of things that would have to happen. Still a huge game. And more importantly, just a huge opportunity for Winnipeg to not worry about what anyone else does. Go in and take care of their business and maybe make those last couple games truly optionals, if you will, for guys that are getting ready for the playoffs. Hey, just before we go, I know you spoke at the beginning of K&R yesterday, but what a loss for the hockey world, Hockey Night in Canada, a guy that I know you worked with for many years, Greg Millen. Just really, really shocking passing. I mean, yesterday, and obviously the Jets on very, very short notice did a nice job with the moment of silence before, but just a quick thought on Greg's passing.
Just universally loved, and like everywhere he went, I thought really, maybe did the best job I've ever seen of straddling the line as a former player and a broadcaster. Really understood the players, but respected the craft of broadcasting, and walked that line in a way where it can be tough to walk that line. Sometimes people go too far in the other direction and they close themselves off from players. Sometimes guys, try and stay in the locker room as a player, and then you get into positions where you don't call a spade on the ice because you don't want to upset the player that you're talking to. Greg Millen, just a pro's pro. Loved by everybody. Every building that we walked into made everyone's life a little bit better that day. No matter who he was talking to, he brought a laugh to the situation. He brought levity to the situation while staying right on top and respecting the craft. I can't believe that a guy that I used to listen to when I was young, growing up, watching hockey, hearing him in the playoffs, another guy who was one of those soundtrack of my youth guys. I got to call a friend and a mentor and a guy that at every turn, when I needed something, I'd call him. He'd pick up the phone. He'd take the time. He'd give you your advice. He'd give you advice unprompted, which I always love because it means that someone's looking out for you, right? Like, I think you need this advice right now. This is information you could use. So unbelievably lucky to have had him as a friend and a colleague and a mentor, and what a gut shot.
Rennie, really appreciate you jumping on today, pal. Glad to have you back on the Jets beat now that Ovi's got the record, and keep up the great work on K&R. Really enjoyed the show last night. We'll look forward to a big one coming up Thursday after the Jets take on the Dallas Stars. You have a great one, pal. Get some more rest.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. You're always rocking it as usual, man. Thanks.
Appreciate it, dude. There it is. Sean Reynolds, the Rennie of Kenny and Rennie. Fun show last night for the fellas after that big win. Of course, you know where to find it. Give them a sub on YouTube if you haven't already. All right, Murat's going to join us in a couple minutes. Let me give a big thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, synonymous with Winnipeg. Princess Auto, founded in the Peg, headquartered right here, and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them on Panet Road, on Portage Avenue West, out in Brandon for our friends in Westman. And of course, you can always shop 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com, and the countdown continues before we get back out to Princess Auto Stadium for a big season of Winnipeg Blue Bomber football. Bombers are going to be back. The sun's going to be out. The snow's going to be gone. And we're going to be back on the water this year. I cannot wait to get to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Shout out to Mark Larveld, who was the winner of the auction for the HSC Foundation. Looking forward to getting out there with Mark and his guest. And listen, if you're thinking about maybe changing up your summer travel plans, maybe you're planning on staying and spending your money in Canada as opposed to going to the States, we've got a world-class fly-in fishing location. You can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. And as great as the fishing is, the hospitality from the Aikens team and the Tarrant family is even better. Find out more today on the 2025 fishing season, options and more at aikenslake.com. And hit them up on Insta and the rest of the socials at Aikens Lake for more on the beautiful Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. And hey, as we get ready for the turn of the season, you know what that means, gangs. Weddings, grads. Guys, if you need to up your menswear game, head on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. The best in custom men's suits, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. Couple big promos right now. Of course, if you're in a wedding party like Connor is, get the fellas down there. They'll give you a great discount on suits for the big day when you get them at F Apparel. And if you have a graduate in the family, or if you are graduating and you need a suit for the big day and moving forward into next year, guys at F will hook you up with a free custom shirt and tie with any suit purchase for 2025 Manitoba grads. Find out more, 190 Smith Street downtown. Check them out online and book an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPH apparel.com. Couple notes. We will have Kevin Donnelly on the program tomorrow. There was the press conference today for the plans for the playoffs. Now the Jets have clinched home ice. We've got a pretty good idea about when the games will be. Street parties, road viewing parties at Canada Life Center. So we'll do a big segment on that tomorrow on the program, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on. We're going to keep it locked in on last night's game and a look ahead to Thursday against the Dallas Stars. Coming up as we welcome in Murat. And this segment is a presentation of your Prairie Toyota dealers. We've got this great contest going on right now. If you have not entered yet, what are you waiting for? The grand prize includes a signed Mark Scheifele jersey, a signed Connor Hellebuck jersey, and other great Winnipeg Sports Talk merchandise. What you need to do is enter on Instagram, visit Prairie Toyota Dealers at Prairie Toyota Dealers, and as well as on Facebook at Prairie Toyota, or you can click the link in the description of this video today to take you right there. And again, it's open to Manitobans, people in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And hey, get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. Rear power windows so you can let in the fresh air or let the aroma of the burgers out you had for lunch. And I mean, everywhere it goes, this truck turns heads. Leads from $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.19% APR with $66.99 down. Hybrid available. For more information, get on over to the website and visit shoptoyota.ca. All right, Murat is with us. And Murat, I think we just have to start right into it. What a complete performance by the Winnipeg Jets last night in a game that many people were looking forward to see how they'd match up against a team that had been beating everybody for the last month in the NHL. Oh, hold on a sec. We got you you muted. Is that on us?
Yeah, I think this is I forgot. This is like 3 weeks in a row. I don't know what. 1 sec. Let me just change this thing. We're good now.
Okay, perfect. What's going on?
Just saying, I mean, you know, when a team like St. Louis had won the most games in a row of any team this season, it surpassed Winnipeg's own streak. They've been one of the hardest teams to score goals against. Limited rush chances, limited slot chances. Their goaltending had been amazing. Joel Hofer had played wonderfully in his hometown of Winnipeg. And the Blues could barely get over the Jets' blue line in the first period. That's how connected the back check was, how good the gap was. The Jets spent the entirety of the first period just about in the offensive zone and kept their foot on the gas until they got paid for it. if you were looking for a playoff quality game where they stayed resilient and they stayed pressuring even when they didn't immediately score despite all their pressure, that was it. That was a great sign. Do it against Dallas, and all of a sudden you're riding a heck of a high.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the game and the first two periods against Utah were really disappointing. I mean, that was a dud, and that was a big opportunity for the Jets after what had happened with Dallas earlier that day. But like we've seen all year long, Murat, there hasn't been very many games like that. And when the Jets have that, they put it in the rear view very quickly and get back to where they've been for the majority of this season. And maybe an even more, important fact, the biggest games, they have risen to the level of it. And I think we saw all of that last night, and not just right out of the gate, but for a full 60 minutes of smothering hockey that frustrated St. Louis unlike anything we've seen in a while for that team.
Yeah, it was one of the most complete games the Jets have played all season. It was absolute dominance against a team whose defensive structure was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. The Blues played great, but Winnipeg played better. And I think of this idea of this team resilience that it has, the idea that you just mentioned where when they've had an occasional bad game, they tend to follow it up and sort of erase it. Part of learning lessons in any field of life, but the NHL especially, is going through something, having the opportunity to make it right, and then delivering on it so that the next time it comes around, that situation faces you, you have confidence that you know what to do to solve the problem. And the Winnipeg Jets are that. They know what they need to do, and they can point at a growing body of evidence that says when they are needed, they show up. When there is a challenge, they show up. And they've got all sorts of games like this now to say that this is a much more resilient bunch. And let me tell you, Huss, you look at the metrics, the underlying stuff, whether it was a St. Louis game or anything down the stretch since Four Nations, this is a much better team than the one that had down the stretch last year, even though it won 8 games in a row.
Yeah, and listen, I think we all agreed and realized that once we saw what happened in the playoffs, I mean, those last 8 games, the 7-0 win in Colorado, it really didn't mean a lot because they weren't able to get anywhere close to their level that they were through most of the regular season. I have to admit, we think about this, and listen, all teams will be judged on what happens come the postseason. But Murat, right from day one this year, it seemed like the bitter taste of what happened in the playoffs last year, and to a lesser extent the year before, was motivating this team to I know it sounds cliche, we heard everyone's got to be 5 or 10% better. They really have done that throughout the year, and I'm not sure there was a better example of it than last night's game, considering they were off their game on Saturday night and knew the importance of this one heading into a monster game on Thursday.
I'm going to make a roundabout point that this is why journalism matters in a strange way, because you can take this story back beyond the start of this season into last season's exit interviews, whether it's Josh Morrissey right after Winnipeg had lost Game 5 or whether it was all of the players in the exit interviews. They were saying some of the same things that you've heard from teams past, some Jets disappointed seasons. They were saying some of the same things. We need to be better. We need to do this. They talked about this 5 to 10% better thing. But when Josh Morrissey said, I hope this stings, and when one after another, they were leaning into that message, to be in the room, to physically be in the room, not necessarily just read the quotes or see a clip or whatever, but to be there, there was a palpable sense of they kind of mean it this time. There was a difference in emotional tenor to that, and that's reflected. I go back to my pieces from that time period, and it's in there. The writing says, this is different. This is a different emotional level for this group. What it means in the long run remains to be seen. Then to your point, going into the season and seeing how they've responded, seeing how many players have improved, doubled down on things that go well, improved things that haven't, it turns out, I think it's meant an awful lot. And those lessons, I think, will be the story of Winnipeg's season, though they'll need the playoffs, of course, to really cement everything. I think this has been almost a year in the making, the success that they're having.
Yeah, listen, I agree 100%. And just to talk about at the end of last year and what we heard from the Jets, it was in stark contrast to the previous year against Vegas. And obviously the bones blow up and all that, in that they didn't own it like they did last year. And Not only did they own it at the end of the year, but it seemed like they sat on it and owned it all summer and heard what everyone was saying about them, and then have been on a mission since we dropped the puck on game number 1 of the regular season. And I can go to numerous examples in the NHL, in other professional sports leagues, Murat, where very good teams are forged by failure and the disappointments of what could have been and what didn't happen earlier. And who knows how this run will go once they get to the playoffs. But I think it's very clear that the shortcomings and what they weren't able to do in the past has, in a lot of ways, sort of steeled this team. It's made them ready for playoff-type games like we've seen last night, and it has allowed them to be their best in the biggest situations, the biggest scenarios, and playing against the best teams in this league.
Yeah, everybody thinks that they can do it until somebody shows them better, right? Like, everybody thinks that they're, I don't know, a hard worker until that they practice beside a Blake Wheeler in his prime. Everybody thinks that they deliver, like they've got all the offensive ability in the world until they transition from junior into the NHL and find out how hard it is to get to space. Like, all that sort of stuff. Teams do need to learn lessons collectively. And for me, that's the sum of a whole bunch of individuals finding out that, wait a second, there's more out there. Like, Colorado found a level that Winnipeg couldn't get to. And I think that, you know, it stung. And we've talked about that at length. You don't need another monologue from me on that topic. But it is a real thing. The learning of lessons does take failure, and failure should be something that is embraced in general if you're willing to acknowledge it, if you're willing to open it up and say, okay, you know, rationally, here's what went well, here's what didn't, all that sort of stuff. I think that being able to honestly name an issue or a challenge is step one towards overcoming it. And, you know, it continues to be a positive storyline for the Jets that they named it last year and they're overcoming it this year. I honestly, it makes me fired up to see what happens down the stretch and into the playoffs. I hope to be covering a really great team.
You know, Murat, when we're talking about the team, and you came on a couple of weeks ago and you talked about, you know, why Scott Arniel should absolutely be a finalist for the Jack Adams Trophy. I mean, one of the things different in this team this year, albeit most of the personnel is the same, you know, is the coaching staff. And you know, we saw the matchups last night, the way Arniel executed it. I mean, the performance of the team from top to bottom, sticking to that plan that has made them successful in doing it. And we've also seen at times, I think maybe in contrast to Bones, you know, a guy that has adjusted and made adjustments in game that maybe put them in a different spot that they were before. Is coaching more of an advantage, do you think, this year with this group and Scott Arniel calling the shots than maybe it had been in the last couple of years?
I mean, it certainly seems that way by results and even by the underlying numbers. This team's better at 5-on-5 defense, even than the Bones version, which had marked a huge improvement over the versions that came before it, right? So that's a special thing that's happening in Winnipeg. Scott Arniel definitely does a better job of sort of not losing the matchups that he is after. This is something I've been aware of and people have talked to me about. This is a strength of Scott Arniel. He has a good balance, I think, of getting the matchups that he wants and then being open to a little bit of flexibility or a little bit more of it than Bonus was. And in one of the ways that you can see that, you know, everybody in Winnipeg knows Adam Lowry gets the tough minutes, right? Those are the tough assignments that line gets. It's been one of the most severe shutdown assignments of any shutdown type line in the NHL all season long. And one of the things that it's helped do is, even more than in past seasons, Scheifele's line, though they are, you know, capable of playing against top lines, Scott Arniel sort of dodged top lines for that group at 5-on-5 when he's wanted to. And that allows that group to get even more offense and, you know, get burnt by a Robert Thomas to Buchnevich pass like they did last night less often. And it's between that and their individual pushes to become better, you've seen a huge swing in that line's defensive results and performance. Combine those two things, when you got the players bought in and dialed in, the coaching, you know, trying to get that next percentage of an advantage. And I think that that's a real strength for the Jets. Can't discuss coaching advantages in Winnipeg without special teams, though, and I think that power play is also an enormous part of why, you know, they're close to setting a franchise Jets record of most points ever in a season by this team.
And just while we're on the topic of special teams, I mean, the power play is one thing. The penalty kill has been very significant in wins like this, the Vegas game, I mean, to keep them, in a position where they were even keeled. What have you seen? What's the trending nature, your thoughts for the Jet PK going into a point in time in the season where it is very, very important to limit the opposition getting in at you when it's 5-on-4?
Yeah, the trend is positive. This is a penalty kill that has been inching towards improvement all season. Yes, it took a little bit of a dip when Dylan Samberg got hurt, took a little bit of a rise back to form when Samberg came back. But even since Four Nations, if you dig down, and I've written about this, the Jets have been, through most of this time, the single hardest team to get a shot against when they're shorthanded since Four Nations. And that's partly a little bit of a tweak to their pressure points. Partly it's an increase in team speed once you have Brandon Tanev there as well. But I also think that they've done a better job of identifying some of the lanes that they got beat by. And if you watch the PK against St. Louis last night, they were picking off an awful lot of seam pass attempts. And even when they got stretched, because they were pressuring, they had sticks just, one side or to the other opens up a lane or closes it off. And I think that one of the things that really went well for them and has been going well for them is they're sort of reading what the power plays are trying to do a lot better and getting picked apart a lot less often. And it's led to some really great underlying numbers. It's led to nights like yesterday and others where the PK helps win games. And what it's also done is that as the power play gently returns to earth without Gabriel Velarde on it, and certainly Nikolai Ehlers as well, the PK's picking up the slack, and the Jets keep winning by and large.
Murat of The Athletic is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Moving on, I mean, Scott Arniel kind of said it. It's great to set a franchise record in 53 wins. Speaks to the division that they're in, that the job isn't done to lock down first place in this division, the number 1 seed, which, of course, brings us to Thursday, a game that we've had circled on the calendar for weeks. Thoughts on the opportunity for the Jets going into Dallas, who finally slipped up on the weekend and ended their winning streak, knowing what's at stake?
Yeah, great word, opportunity. That's what it is, and that's what I'm sure the team is viewing it as. I think that they've done a great job in their messaging, whether amongst themselves or to us in the media, about making sure we know it's about Winnipeg winning. It's not about Dallas losing. They're not waiting for the Stars to slip up, even though they, thankfully from the Jets' perspective, did finally give up some points over the weekend. Even in watching the Dallas Stars games, by the way, they've largely won against the flow of play. They've had some spectacular goaltending performances from Jake Ottinger and Casey DeSmith that have really helped cover things up. They got beat a couple of times in terms of just like chaotic mistakes, and the Wild were able to knock them off in overtime on Sunday, was it? So it's nice to see them return to earth a little bit. I think they were winning against the flow of play. The Jets have been succeeding with the flow of play. You kind of like the Jets' chances to sort of take the St. Louis victory and the process that went into it into Dallas and have some success as well. But make no mistake, for both teams, it's a measuring stick game, whether that's, about cementing first in the Central, whether it's about sort of seeing how that they size up heading into what could be a second round matchup if both teams win. These are really great hockey clubs, and it's another tough test. It's an opportunity for Winnipeg to assert history that they might win their first Central Division title, that they might set some records that they have as of yet in the franchise and even in Jets 1.0 weren't always able to do.
Your latest at The Athletic, and we'll hit on a couple topics in that, does include more on the greatness of Connor Hellebuck. What do you think about his heart chances right now as we get into the final 5-6 games of the year?
I could see him in the top 5 when all is said and done. I feel like he's in tough to win it outright, but the fact that there are national writers and television that are at least talking about him in the Hart Trophy conversation, that's a big deal. We usually drive the conversation from Winnipeg and eventually people notice. I think that people have noticed. It may also help, in a roundabout way, that Draisaitl had some injury issues, Kaprizov had some injury issues. some of the players that at various stages of the season felt like automatics have, for whatever reason, not been able to get into games, and maybe their end of season numbers will be less impressive. I think it generally takes an exceptional, not just performance from the goaltender, but performance from media members in recognizing that and being willing to elevate a goalie at the right time in history for a goaltender to actually win the Hart Trophy when all is said and done. But he will get votes. I see him in the top 5. He could land on the podium. And, I have such a hard time seeing him win it. But the fact that we're having this conversation for a goaltender who plays in Winnipeg is a spectacular thing unto itself.
Why do you have such a hard time seeing him win it? Is it more because of the inherent bias against goaltenders, or is there somebody else that you're just like, how can he not be the MVP? Because to be perfectly honest, Hellebuck's leading the league in wins, shutouts, save percentage, goals against. It's happened twice in NHL history, and it hasn't happened since the 80s. And that includes Carey Price, Jose Theodore, Dominic Hasek, goalies that have won Hart trophies, not to mention a team that could very well finish first overall in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because goalies almost should be disproportionate winners of the award. If you're
agreed.
Judging most valuable to their team, a great goaltending performance swings an awful lot of things. And I think I've said this before. I think I've shared this. I'm fairly confident anyways. I had on my Hart Trophy ballot in 2020, I think Connor Hellebuck was number 1 or towards the top of my list. And that was because the Winnipeg Jets defense was so full of holes that year. I thought it was absolutely amazing that they were within a sniff of the playoffs when that season was interrupted. So there have been times where I've been definitely game to put him number 1. For me, I think that when you look at Winnipeg's season record and the fact that they're going to be a spectacular finish, they could win the President's Trophy, all of this sort of stuff, and I divide up the pieces of that, for me, Connor Hellebuck is an enormous piece. The power play is an enormous piece. The fact that the 5-on-5 metrics are even better than they've been in recent years is an enormous piece. I no longer view him as carrying the Jets so much as being a spectacular goaltender on top of a quality team. And maybe that's where it comes from for me, where I'm no longer saying, well, he was the guy and only reason, which was unfair even, but that was a perspective that I think was fair when the defense was stitched together by waivers. So maybe there's historical precedent, like you say. Was it Jose Theodore was the last one to do it?
Price.
Carey Price, pardon me. Montreal was in my head. The wrong name came to mind. So Carey Price to me had that league-wide acclaim for whatever reason. Even though Hellebuck is doing what Carey Price did for a lot of years, which is many, many years of elite performance in a row, for whatever reason, maybe it's a Winnipeg thing, size of market compared to Montreal, whatever it is, I've never gotten the sense that around the NHL, people are quite as bought in as what is clearly the best goaltender of his generation now as they were in the Prices and Lundqvists of the previous generation of goalie. And maybe for Jets fans' sake, I just hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, the way I look at it, and listen, often with these things, I kind of follow the money. I look to see what the betting sites are taking risk on it. And right now, Draisaitl is a very slight favorite over Hellebuck. And then there's a gap, and it's Nathan McKinnon. I'd be surprised if it wasn't those 3 players as the finalists. But with Draisaitl out right now, we talk about opportunity for the team. Not that, individual awards is going to be driving anything they do, but I really do think that if they finish the job, win the Central, win the West, and that probably means winning the President's Trophy, if Hellebuck finishes as it looks like he will, pushing coming close to the all-time wins record and running the table in all 4 of those categories, despite being in Little Winnipeg and maybe not having a lot of that push behind him throughout the year, I think when the members of the association dig in, it is going to be pretty hard not to have him getting some real significant votes and a lot of first-place votes. And that would be pretty exciting, I think, for Hellebuck, the organization, and certainly for Winnipeg Jet fans. Murat, outside of, the playoff push right now, Kieran Walton signed this week, and I know you've got some stuff on Kieran in The Athletic this week. A 6th round pick. I was joking yesterday. I wonder if there was a redraft where he'd be after the season that he's had, or if he wasn't picked in the 6th round, was undrafted, where he'd be drafted this year after a breakout season where he doubled his goals, his assists, his points, and continues to grow into that 6'6" frame.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea. And so I love that Scott Wheeler and Corey Pronman at The Athletic will do those sorts of pieces. Here are the players I was wrong about, or rated too highly or too lowly, or here's what a redraft would look like. And whether it's Kieran Walton, Kevin He, the Jets absolutely crushed last year in terms of how they've done so far this season or throughout their season. Walton joining the Moose, he was at practice today, so that's exciting. For me, I mean, Kieran Walton doubling his point production, that's sensational stuff. For him to have sort of the playing style that he has at 6'6", more like a Tage Thompson with tons of skill involved. I remember the interview he did with you guys earlier in the year where he was saying, well, he kind of gets on the YouTube train and sort of goes through Tage Thompson highlights to try to work things into his game. That's just an exciting player type. When he has the performance and the results that he did. I know he cooled off towards the second half of the season. The last 20 games, he was quote unquote only a point per game player as opposed to just the incredible numbers he had earlier. But 5 points in 4 playoff games, a real big force for his team in the playoffs prior to over the course of their defeat. I think he's somebody that Jets fans should be really excited about. And when I talk to scouts, this season, I've often mentioned Kevin He's name as Kieran Walton's buddy just down the road who also had a sensational OHL season. But they often tell me, in terms of this long term, if they hit sort of upside on these players, Kevin He is worth the acclaim. He's worth all this, the attention we gave him in the first half of the season. But in the long run, if you're looking for one, Kieran Walton might be it. And that's an exciting thing. So happy to, I think I was first on that. I think I broke that this weekend. But either way, it's just a good thing for Winnipeg to have him in the fold.
Hey, just on that, I mean, he's going to be on the ATO with the Moose, and we'll presumably get into some games here as the team finishes out the regular season. Have you heard anything on Kevin He possibly doing the same thing?
Yeah, I haven't been able to lock that down. That's an interesting one. I expect him to. It makes sense to me. Just a few games left in the Moose season. It would be just a really great turn. He's already signed his ELC, so he can... all systems point to it should happen, but I haven't been able to confirm it, even though I think it's happening. So we'll see. I think it's going to happen, but I can't say that I know.
Certainly, I mean, it'll give some fans of the Moose and certainly of the Jets an opportunity if Kevin does come to see a couple of top prospects from last year's draft get a little bit of pro action before getting back for a summer and then being here for another development camp in the offseason. Murat, always great having you on the program. Tee up the mailbag, Kieran Walton and everything else waiting in your latest piece right now at The Athletic.
Yeah, I mean, that one is fun. We also get into something that you and I have talked a lot about is what's the ideal defense to run into the season, but also what's the ideal defense to run into next season is a big issue on people's minds with Sal Monson coming down the pipe. Luke Shen will be under contract. Will Neil Pionk be back? All that sort of stuff. I'm also working on a part 2 that I'm talking about the 5-on-3 power play, why that's had success at times and failure at others. A little bit more about some future projections as well. It is a fun week. Everyone, it's roughly once a month, but it's not always that, where readers and subscribers ask questions. And I always feel the most connected to the people who read me when the story is all about things that you want to know. So I'm kind of, fired up about a lot of things with this week, but it feels good to be writing.
Murat, it has been a great season and a lot more fun to come, especially Thursday night. Big one in Dallas. I know you'll be all over it. Thanks so much for doing this. Have a great one, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Huss. Thanks for having me.
There is Murat Atesh at WPG Murat on X. And his latest, Jets signed Kieran Walton. Connor Hellebuck's greatness and the playoff push is up now for your reading pleasure over at The Athletic. All right, we're going to have Kevin Westgarth come up in a couple minutes and talk a little bit about the upcoming Frozen Four and kind of ask him just about the entire landscape of hockey and developmental hockey and the Canadian Hockey League, and how many huge changes there's been at the NCAA as we get ready for the Frozen Four on the weekend. Before we do that, though, I do want to get to the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And I mean, I think, asking about last night's game is pretty simple. I mean, it was a virtuoso performance of the team top to bottom. But I will ask you, does the performance last night, Saturday night notwithstanding, but this big game against St. Louis, their win in Vegas last week, what has that done to your confidence levels for both winning the division and finishing first, but also as far as what this team, what their potential is come playoff time, regardless of their matchup? Let us know in the chat right now for the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. And maybe we'll have to get a poll up or something like this, because I know that, I mean, Remis, just pop in here for a minute before we get to Kevin. Listen, and I get it. There's been a lot of scar tissue, and I think this team over the season has earned more and more and more, not only respect from the fan base for what the team's been able to do, but getting people to move past prior disappointments and sort of believe in this team. They certainly believe in themselves. They showed it last night. They showed it against Vegas, and they've done it in the biggest games all season long. But I would suggest that if you can get past, a performance against Utah that won't cut it, the games that I think that fans were most nervous about and the biggest challenges have been the ones where the Winnipeg Jets have played their best hockey. Yeah, the Jets have certainly delivered in big games and against tough opponents this year. And, even the game against LA last week, they made a couple of mistakes and it was in the back of their net. The overall game, was mostly fine. But I do think that there is definitely some scar tissue, as you said. And, the players said all the things last year. Dylan DeMello saying, we're going to come back 10% better. And I remember thinking, okay, yeah, you can say that, but what are you actually going to do? How are you going to come back 10% better? Well, we talked earlier in the show about the number of players having career seasons. And yeah, that is coming back 10% better. I remember talking with Greg Wyshynski the beginning of the season when he spoke with the team in New York at, what was that, October, November? And, for a guy who's not in the market, he really got the sense that, hey, they took that loss last year in the playoffs personally and made it their mission to make sure that doesn't happen again this season. Now, we're not going to have the verdict on that until, when the playoffs are said and done, but we haven't seen that second half slide that we've seen in the past. We're seeing them go into the playoffs here playing at a very high level, and we'll see how they play on Thursday against Dallas. But from all indications this season, they're going to have their A game in games when it matters most, and they've played some of their best hockey at home as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that's going to carry over into the playoffs, because you had the first round exit against Vegas, with the pushback game, which I've almost blocked the series out of my mind. You have Colorado last year where you're coming in very strong and basically get steamrolled by Colorado Avalanche team. So I think they've said all the right things. They've done all the right things, but we'll really know once the puck drops in the playoffs, because I remember, being in the building the last couple of years in playoffs, we're like, man, this isn't even the same sport as regular season hockey. But I think the failures the last couple of years have certainly prepared them. And I think a lot about, they're chasing the Washington Capitals for the President's Trophy. I mean, that was a team, how many times did they fail in the playoffs? How many times, did they have outstanding regular seasons before, they finally got over the hump? And that was when everyone said, oh, this team's done. They were written off.
They can't do it. Yeah, they can't do it. And I was like, I'm sick of picking this team every year in the playoffs. And, here the Jets had a chance for a President's Trophy, which is crazy to think. And I do think the playoff failures have prepared them, Huss.
Yeah, just as far as the President's Trophy, not that is really the focus of anyone right now. It's about staying ahead of Dallas and winning the division. But the fact of the matter is, to win the Central, you're probably going to have to win the President's Trophy. The division is that damn good. Winnipeg right now, with 4 games remaining, has 110 points. The Washington Capitals with 5 games remaining, have 107. So even if they win their game in hand, they're still one back of Winnipeg. But the team we're most concerned with, the Dallas Stars, 5 points back of the Jets with 1 game in hand. They'll play in Dallas Thursday night, and that will dominate hockey conversations around this show in this city for the next couple of days. Listen, before we get to Kevin Westgarth, let's get over for a little fan feedback for Fans First, your number one place for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no fees, no added fees. You go to Fans First, you see a pair of tickets that you're looking for, that's the price you're paying, nothing added on afterwards, and certainly a very popular source for ticket holders, season ticket holders that have an extra pair to get their seats out to others that want to use them. And of course, you know exactly what you're getting, and it'll be into your email and your account electronically the next business day after the game is played. Let's hear what we got. We've got the Phyllis. I've got confidence before those games because of their track record this entire season. They have even more confidence now, the same as Sean Reynolds does. I will be honest, I heard Rennie basically say that it's over and put the Y beside the team's name. Freaked me out a little bit, but there's a lot of reason to believe that they can and will get this done. I don't particularly believe that it's over yet. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm damn sure that that's exactly the way the Winnipeg Jets will be thinking. B. Henderson says, I believe the Central and the President's Trophy is the Jets to lose right now. Not disagreeing with that. I mean, it's up to them. It's in their control. In Ehlers we trust. Does why not be positive for a great season for its buy-in, depth, goaltending, an amazing coaching staff, the foundation laid by Bones, and I'm not sure what that last bit is, by Arniel. And then Roy Mack just saying, Jets, Dallas will be crazy on Thursday night. And listen, Derek Schmidt, Rennie knows. Rennie knows. Ehlers Trust also asks, if we run the table, regular season games, do they set a record? Well, they'll set a franchise record, and they've already set a franchise record for wins with their 53rd last night of the year. Keep on giving us your thoughts on the task at hand and the win last night in fan feedback in the chat. Brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll drop the details on our playoffs in the PEG contest, where some lucky WST listeners are going to be putting the whites on to enjoy some playoff hockey courtesy of WST and Coolbet. So stay tuned for information on that. But before we bring in Kevin, the preparations continue for the whiteout. And our friends at Royal Sports are busy right now with Winnipeg Jet fans getting geared up for the playoffs as only they can. So all of the white stuff is out right now on the floor. White hoodies, white player T-shirts, white hats, you name it, they've got it. I think they may even have some of those white painter smocks as well. We know how creative many Winnipeggers are when supporting their team for the playoffs. Royal Sports has you set up, but I would suggest you get down there sooner as opposed to later, because demand is high as we get ready to drop the puck on the first round coming up in a couple weeks. While you're there, spring just around the corner. Check out all the new kicks that are coming in, summer sports equipment, bikes, and of course, all the cool stuff on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Royal is at 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, Thursday night, the big game, Jets, Dallas, we've been waiting for it. It is just about here. No better place to get together with your gang than your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, Jets pick a player contest with great prizes, and of course the game on all the big screens with big sound. Shout out to the IC boys. I know they're doing their show and inviting people to come down and join them at the Boston Pizza Taylor for the game on Saturday night. And of course, if you are staying at home, you can always get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, Kevin Westgarth coming up First, though, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Well, the NCAA Frozen Four goes this weekend, and to talk about it and more about just the landscape of hockey south of the border and with the NCAA programs, the NHL's VP of Hockey Development and Strategic Collaboration, Kevin Westgarth, joins us now. Kevin, thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Andrew. And yeah, thrilled to be joining you. Exciting time for hockey at every level, really.
No kidding. And we had a big game last night here in Winnipeg with the Jets and Blues, and a couple Jets prospects, including Zach Naring, who had a great season this year, getting ready for the NCAA Frozen Four. You know, it's this event always fascinates me, Kevin, in that, you know, we're so used to hockey being, you know, lengthy playoffs, best of 7 series. Right. The NCAA is the one place where, you know, you can have the craziness of upsets because you lose and you're going home.
You're spot on. Like the one and done is definitely an extra layer of in some ways difficulty, and yeah, it just means that every single second you're on the ice means that much more. So. And for the fans, I think it really does just give you this distilled version. We got to watch the NCAA basketball tournament last night thankfully, fantastic game that came down to the wire, and we often see the same thing, obviously, through the hockey tournament for the NCAA as well. So some really good matchups this year. And you mentioned like a couple guys for Winnipeg fans to take a peek at. You mentioned Nearing, but then the big D-man with Denver, Garrett Brown, rather. Somebody to look out for. Both those teams should match up very interestingly, very well against each other, and should be one of them's going to get to the finals. So we'll see.
Now, I'm sure our listeners will be interested to know just more about your role with the league. Excuse me, your role with the league. It's the National Hockey League, which is the goal for everybody to get to in the world, and all these young men are trying to get there. Tell us exactly about kind of the role that you have with the NHL and how that pertains to college hockey in the NCAA.
Yeah, for sure. I was very fortunate coming out of retirement or after retiring, or, stopping playing hockey. Was heavily involved with collective bargaining in 2012. So kind of got to know a lot of the union leadership at the time, NHL leadership, the owners. It was a good position to kind of continue some of those relationships. And that's basically what happened. Was I continued my relationship with the deputy commissioner here at the NHL, Bill Daly, who, thankfully when my career was come to an end, opened the door, and Commissioner Bettman gave me a job and kind of told me to figure it out. And one of the things I figured was that there was a lot of good to be done by just kind of becoming a little more of the connective tissue for our entire development pathway. So going from minor pro through college, and then kind of a number of layers of high level junior. We were talking before the call started, it's certainly a little more scattered, or a little more all over the place, even though us Canadian folks tend to know it pretty well. But hockey's not quite a straight line from youth hockey to the NHL. There's some different pathways that we can take. And so managing those leagues has been, just a phenomenal environment to work in, and basically empowering them with things that we have access or resources to help them with. And they can help us with, communication, the footprint that they inhabit across North America. It's been a really, a great opportunity for me, having played at a lot of these levels too. So it's, fantastic to just try to help the game of hockey.
Well, NCAA sport in general has had some, sea change basically over the last number of years, with the NIL coming in, The potential of having now CHL players who were always ineligible for the NCAA, the possibility. I mean, if you can, take a step back and just how different is the path right now for young players? How much will it change? But even just looking back to 3 or 4 years ago, as far as the landscape of that path and, the role of the NCAA in preparing players for the NHL.
Yeah, the NCAA, if you've been paying attention, has certainly been in a tumultuous couple years. Some lost lawsuits kind of around different long-held traditions, kind of one around amateurism and not being able to set payment for your name, image, and likeness. And certainly the transfer and the opening up and fully opening of the transfer portal, it just really has completely shifted and changed the way that, players, student athletes, and coaches and teams have to be approaching college sports. It's, I have contradicting feelings about it. Part of me just absolutely loved that old amateurism kind of ideal. I'm sure we could argue until we're blue in the face as to whether it was truly ever that, but for my experience, it certainly was. And then obviously it's like, if you're able to make a few bucks by what you do, you should also be able to do that. So I'm just hopeful that, those of us involved in hockey at least, but certainly college sports overall, are keeping in mind like the best for, these student athletes, and making sure that they're well resourced to be able to kind of handle these new decisions and the way the new world is.
How different are things going to be in the next few years? We know that the NIL came in. We've talked about the transfer portal, but specifically, any thoughts on how much junior hockey in Canada may change because of the changes happening south of the border?
I think the CHL leagues, the CHL and its leagues are incredibly well positioned for our game. And I think, if you look at it, they are doing a great job kind of, developing players. I look down here at the U.S. development pathway as well. And there's a lot of great players here in the USHL. It's a fantastic league as well. So I think there will be a lot of really opportunities to kind of look at, try to improve the way we all work together kind of in North America, perhaps more globally. You said it, there's a ton of change, and sometimes, it's going to be difficult. Change is always difficult. However, I think that there could be a lot of good that comes out of it by being able to take that step back, reevaluating, kind of seeing what opportunities are out there for kind of the junior hockey level for sure, and then kind of see how all these pieces fit together along the pathway.
One of the craziest things that, I think is part of the NIL era that we're in right now is the transfer portal that you mentioned. The NCAA tournament wasn't even 2 rounds in, and there were like 40,000 people already in it. Is that happening in hockey very much? Has that changed? And specifically the ability to switch schools without waiting that year. Are we seeing way more players kind of bounce from team to team like we are in football and basketball?
Yeah, there's definitely been an uptick in player movement. Basically, in a strange comp, there was certainly slightly more movement possible before the transfer portal, where players could sit out a league, as you sort of alluded to, could sit out a year if they wanted to change schools. And for a couple of years, it was actually open as a one-time transfer without taking a year off, and now it's just wide open. In an interesting parallel, it's sort of like that's how the CHL had been for years, where it's like you just straight up couldn't come to college. So adding that population to kind of the transfer portal, making a lot more flexibility for student athletes to move between schools. There is a ton. That's a very big change. You can imagine that it can. We could probably once again talk. It might be over a pop conversation about all the different ways that could actually benefit a top team, benefit a bottom team. If you're a top ranked player, didn't get the ice time you wanted, maybe you'll go to a mid-major type type school. If you're the top scorer on that mid-major, maybe you're ended up on that big power 4, power 5 school. So there's I guess where I'm going is we'll find out a lot over the next few years, because I don't think anybody has a crystal ball can tell you exactly where everything's going.
Kevin Westgarth is with the National Hockey League, the VP of Hockey Development and Strategic Collaboration, doing a lot of work with the development path of young players on their way to the National Hockey League. And listen, you don't get a much better opportunity to show what you can do than the Frozen Four. It's going to get going on Thursday. 4 p.m. our time, Denver versus Michigan State. 7:30 p.m. BU, Boston University versus Penn State. I mean, just from a hockey standpoint, Kevin, I mean, this we mentioned the tension of this because it is 1-game semifinals and a 1-game championship. But for folks that haven't been following the NCAA this year, I mean, what to look for this week when the puck drops in these two semis heading into the final on the weekend?
Yeah, it should be some great hockey. I will throw out, I mean, Denver has won a couple times recently. Their coach, David Carl, don't jump all over me, but has been the coach for the American World Junior gold medalists the last couple of years. So has obviously put in or has a great squad that he's wants to grab another title with there. And kind of close, part and parcel to my heart is actually the coach of Penn State is Guy Godowski, who was my coach when I played at Princeton way too many years ago now. So seeing him have some success this season is pretty fantastic. And as much as I obviously am neutral, I might be rooting for the Nittany Lions a little bit this week. Don't tell the Hockey East or Boston University folks that.
I mean, it's and BU, I mean, consistently has a great program. They put a ton of great players in, but Carl in particular, I mean, it's funny, we talk about the NCAA. He's had a ton of steam as to being a potential National Hockey League head coach. And, with guys like Dave Haxtell, we have seen some NCAA coaches go directly from college programs right to the bench as the boss of NHL teams in the last few years.
Yeah, I think you're right, and really, there has been just sort of it's not quite like mergers and acquisitions by any means, but I think there has just been a melding of a lot of the top level hockey, where certainly clubs are looking for talent on and off, on the ice, on the bench, wherever they can possibly find it. He's a great example. To Haxtell, and there is a bunch of guys coming up. Through the CHL still, obviously, but through college, USHL, it is very exciting to see, as we're getting older, also these young bucks coming up, and fun to see the next generation start to get some of these gigs.
Well, I can tell you that, the games on Thursday will be awesome. And then the final as well, Saturday night championship game, 7 p.m. Winnipeg time. And all the games will be available to watch over on TSN+. Kevin, thanks so much for popping by. Looking forward to the tourney, and appreciate you jumping on with us today.
That's right. I better get a shout-out in for the Hobie Baker Awards on Friday night as well, starting at 6 Eastern, I believe. That should be an exciting night, bunch of the college hockey awards, and it's just a great night to kind of celebrate everything hockey, and obviously particularly college hockey. Appreciate you having me on, Andrew. All the best, and good luck to the Jets here. Have a great day, and say hi to Bill and the gang at HQ. Always love dealing with those guys on the different things throughout the years. You be well. West. Thanks so much.
Houston, and if they won, he would have won. So he was asking, he was hyping himself. Sorry, I had you muted. You want to start again there? Yeah, I was just saying that we mentioned that the Frozen Four is going this weekend. Last night was the end of March Madness and the NCAA tournament won by the Florida Gators.
And I was wondering, Remis, who I had Florida, but too many of my other picks sucked, so I don't think I won. There was some love for the Gators, but I'd imagined I was just wondering who we got. Who's the big winner?
Yeah, I had Auburn. So if they would have won, I would have probably maybe finished number 2, I think. But the big winner, and shout out to Manny Fran, who was hyping himself up in the chat yesterday. He needed Houston. They didn't even get a shot off at the end, which was the most.
That was crazy.
Which was the disappointing part of that. Not even get an opportunity to try and tie or take the lead when they went for the 3. But the winner is Schmant. I don't know who that is. But he had, they had Florida to win, and what did they have in the final? They had Florida against Houston in the final. They had Florida winning 65. Is that the score? The score they said. I don't know what they had. I can't read these brackets. Anyways, Schmat won.
Schmat, nicely done. Schmat, if you're there, fire us an email. We'll hook you up with a little prize pack for the big win. I'm looking like I finished 10th. Obviously, everyone. Manny Fran finished ahead of me, even with taking an L in the national championship game.
Where are you? You had Florida.
Nice. Yeah, I had Florida, but I wasn't really close the entire run. So, anyways, shout out to everyone that jumped in the pool. Hope you enjoyed the tourney. Yeah, it was quite the end to the game. I did bet Florida last night, though, and used that 30% win boost for Coolbet. So it actually ended up being quite a nice night, even though I wasn't really in the mix for the tournament. Hey, it's Masters Week. I know there were some people asking if Feinberg's going to be on the program. Good news. Jeff Feinberg will be joining us tomorrow. A very popular WST regular. Feinberg will come in with his thoughts on the Masters. Of course, our Breezy Bend golf reports this week are on the, for many and most, the biggest tournament of the year. We'll be breaking it down tomorrow and then following it Thursday and Friday here on the program with a big wrap on Monday. Of course, with the Masters here, that means golf season is just around the corner. Talking to Corey and the gang out of Breezy Bend. Just finished a beautiful clubhouse reno. But they're ready to go. Probably in a couple weeks, we'll be out on Breezy Bend. And, of course, the course is mint. They've done so much work there. And Breezy will be the host of the Manitoba Open this year in August. And we'll look forward to doing some shows out there. If you want more information on getting on the waiting list for Breezy, give our pal Corey Johnson a call for more information. And if you're thinking about making Breezy Bend a long-term golfing home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg and Manitoba's top private courses. All right, let's get to a busy night tonight in the National Hockey League, and we will get to the Coolbet lines. But this is not live yet, but everyone that's with us now is going to find out first here. Shout out to our pals over at Coolbet because we've teamed up together and we are doing a playoffs in the peg contest through our social media channels on X as well as Instagram and the Coolbet socials. Keep your eyes posted or peeled, I should say, for the post that will give you all the information on what you need to do. And I think people are going to love this. You'll follow us, make sure you're following us and you're following Coolbet. You'll tag a friend that you'd bring to the game. If you have a Coolbet username, you can put that in for an extra chance to win. And then we will draw somewhere in and around 20, 24 finalists for the first game. And then we'll do a marble race live on the program. And the winner will be getting playoff tickets, courtesy of Winnipeg Sports Talk and Coolbet. So tell your friends, direct people as to where to go. Maybe they'll take you if they win because you tip them off to the contest. But just another great contest and giveaway with our friends at Coolbet. Cannot wait for the playoffs and cannot wait to send some of you guys to throw the whites on and support the home team at upcoming playoff action. So at Sports Talk WPG on Instagram, on X, make sure you're following us if you haven't already, at Coolbet Canada. Keep your eyes out for the post. and we'll open that up as soon as it gets going. And then depending on the schedule, the first playoff game is going to be on either probably Saturday or Sunday. I know there's this BTO concert. I'm still thinking that maybe that would get moved and we'd have a Saturday night game, considering the Leafs probably aren't starting until Sunday. But I guess we will see. But the end of next week on either Thursday or Friday will be the first marble race for a winner. And guess what? We've got seats for other playoff games too. So if you don't win the first one, you'll still have more chances to win. So again, social media, keep your eyes out. That is coming up very soon. And thanks again to Patty and Jake and Andrew and the gang for making that all possible. Lots going on in the combo cards right now, of course, because the Masters are here too. We got a big slate of hockey. We'll talk Masters tomorrow, but do not forget, speaking of great contests at Coolbet, if you haven't clicked that link that Pat Mayo put up, you can also just go into my account bonuses and then put in Can Open, CANOPEN, and make sure you do that and opt in before you make any Masters bets, because for every $10 that you bet on the Masters or next week's tournament, you'll get a raffle entry for that amazing trip for two to Toronto for the Canadian Open, some Blue Jays action, the Mayo live show, and it's great. And this is also, and check the promotions tab for this, your last week to get in on the trip to UFC 315. Again, simple opt-in by clicking that link and putting and just staying it in. And then if you make a $25 bet or any $25 bets you do on the UFC, you'll be in for that trip as well. This event this weekend is the final chance to get in before they announce the winner for UFC 315. So check the promotions tab. Lots going on over at Coolbet. Lots going on tonight on the ice. We have a full slate of action in the NHL, starting with the Canes at Sabres. James Reimer's in net tonight. If you're looking for a dog, I'm staying away from that game. Carolina minus 238 faves. The Sens, I believe the Sens can clinch their playoff spot with a win in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. Ottawa is minus 115. Leafs and Panthers. Panthers are getting Barkov and Reinhart back. That completely flipped the odds. The Leafs were minus 118 this morning. They're now plus 140. Panthers minus 164. The Red Wings are in Montreal. Habs looking to lock down their spot. I actually kind of like Detroit in this. I think Montreal's due for a loss. Detroit's desperate. Detroit plus 118. Habs minus 139. Devils minus 244 faves against the Bruins. The Penguins minus 203 faves against the Blackhawks. The game we'll be paying attention to tonight. Vancouver in Dallas. Dallas is minus 200. Vancouver plus 170. Islanders minus 120 in Nashville. Utah HC minus 227 favorites at home to the Kraken. And a heck of a nightcap tonight. Avalanche, Golden Knights. It was minus 130 earlier for Colorado. Now minus 135 for Colorado. And Hart Trophy has not moved. Connor Hellebuck still a close second in the odds, plus 110. Leon Draisaitl minus 115. All the Masters options are up. So you can obviously bet outrights on who you think is going to win the tournament. There's also top 5s, top 10s, top 20s, top 30s, top 40 options for you. You've got head-to-head matchups for the tournament. Make the cut. And then all of the groups. You want to bet who will be the top Asian? We got you. Top Spaniard, top debutante, top rest of the world, top American. The top Canadian, Corey Connors, is the favorite at that at plus 120 ahead of Taylor Pendrith. A bunch of groups where you can pick out. You want the best player from Oceania? We've got you covered there as well. And number of Canadians to make the cut. I mean, I'm going to spend 2 hours tonight just going through all the Masters offerings, but it's there right now. And again, if you opt in with Can Open in the bonuses, every $10 you drop on the Masters, you'll get an entry for that awesome Canadian Open trip. And then, of course, UFC 314 odds are up for the big card this weekend. As I mentioned, go to the promotions tab and make sure you get in before you make any UFC wagers so you're eligible to win the trip to Montreal. Big lock shop tomorrow. We'll be doing a Masters draft where we'll be doing our favorite picks in a bunch of different categories. So make sure to join us for that. And then don't forget Jeff Feinberg on tomorrow's program here on WST. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And don't forget, if you are a Coolbetter, when you're seeing the contest post, make sure to add your Coolbet username, and that'll get you an extra raffle in the ticket. How about that, Remis? Playoff tickets. I'm not sure we've ever had a contest that will be more in demand than this one when it launches.
Yeah, I know last year we had some street party tickets to give away, and those are in high demand, but I'm sure playoff tickets to the actual in-arena experience would be extremely high demand. So, we're starting to get ready. They did have the whiteout party announcement today. So, the season's not done yet, but starting to get playoff fever. Hustler, I'm feeling it. I'm getting excited.
Oh, man, listen, walking out of the entire game experience last night was all about playoff fever, and the way the team played, I think everyone certainly had it after the game. Got a really nice tweet, actually, or an X message, whatever you want to call it, a post. I'm just going to find this right here because I wanted to actually thank.
So words you?
Owen Piper, O-Pipes 24.
Okay.
Said, I gave you a very happy high five after the game, Mr. Huss. As soon as I saw you, I was like, I ain't passing up high-fiving this legend. I love the shows, man. You truly bring the best content, and you seem like a great guy. Go Jets, go. So, O-Pipes, that made my day. Thank you very much. It was great to high-five you and all the other fans. Did a shout out to Mike Wynn. We did our little 316 victory selfie afterwards that Mike immediately posted, which is always fun. And by the way, Remis, how about my prediction for the Amazon broadcast that Mike Wynn and Carter Chen would both be seen behind Adnan Virk yesterday? That's what you call nailing it. 2 for 2. Both Mike and Carter found themselves into the scrum lurker position behind the Amazon stage, and that was basically should have been about minus 10,000 if the guys at Coolbet were booking it.
Yeah, I mean Carter Chen, Instagram influencer locally in the food scene, local legend, and yes, he's always back there in the broadcast. I love how Amazon, it feels it's a national broadcast, but they bring it to Winnipeg. They tell Winnipeg stories, and they do a really good job of it. So. I do enjoy watching whoever was on. In the background, there was a kid in a hot dog costume. He knew the assignment. If you're going to be standing there.
The kid wears the hot dog costume every game.
Oh, he does? Oh.
That kid has been at almost every game for the past few months, and he's wearing the hot dog costume every time. And I'm completely here for it as well.
Yes, I'm here for that as well. They had they have the dancing hot dog on the screen as part of like a retro package. Y'all remember the dancing hot dog from Winnipeg Arena? Maybe not all of us. I know there's some, we do have some young listeners in the chat, Hustler, but.
They wouldn't remember the dot matrix dancing hot dog.
No.
They threw that up last night as well.
Oh, they do throw
on
it
the
up.
Screen. Yeah, I thought they usually just did that for the Heritage games, but it was up there last night.
It was there,
Oh,
yeah.
and by the way, I also have to say, I had the most bizarre experience yesterday getting to the game. So my friend and I, that we were at the game, we got there. I mean, like it was a 6:30 game, but it's a little late. So I don't know. They were playing the video beforehand, and they do such a great job of updating it based on what's happening. And it's the push to the playoffs. It's 5 games left. Anyways, we grab a beer. We're walking into the Arena Bowl, and I'm immediately hit with my own voice. I guess they used some of that runway bit, Reem, for the playoff, for the pregame video. One of the more bizarre things. We definitely appreciate the Jets using our content in the runway series and some other stuff, but I don't think I've ever kind of recoiled at the sound of my own voice more than getting hit with it as loud as you can imagine on arena speakers walking into a seat to enjoy the game.
Wow. I'll be honest, like when I show those features during intermission or you watch them on YouTube Runway, it is so well done, bringing you a behind the scenes look at the Winnipeg Jets season. And to have clips from this show included, and it says, Winnipeg Sports Talk on it. Very cool. And if we look back on this season and however many years, and those clips are still going to be there on YouTube or whatever way you consume video in the future. These those clips from this show on that is very very cool. So appreciative to Sarah and everyone involved. Tyler, with the Jets Runway, who we send the clips to, and they go through our show and say, hey, we need clips from that. So very very cool. And
and on the game production, I mean, obviously it was really neat to be have WST in some of this content. But I do have to give a shout out to Balls and his team. It was a very nice moment of silence for Greg Millen last night. And that news essentially broke after the doors were open. So, I mean, they got that cool old shot of him playing goaltender for the St. Louis Blues, who the Jets were playing last night. Put it together with one of the pictures of him at Hockey Night in Canada, a nice memoriam and a moment of silence. So credit to everyone for working very quickly to once again put on a first-class part of the game, remembering Greg Millen, who, of course, I just can't get over what a shocking loss that is, Remis. I really had no idea, and I still don't really know the details of what happened, but I have to admit, I loved Millen. And listen, he wasn't always complimentary or a guy, like he wasn't certainly puffing up teams. But just the way his level of delivery and the fact he'd been doing this for long enough, I don't think Greg Millen ever really cared what people thought of his. He was going to give you the goods and do it straight. And it's just a huge loss for the hockey world.
I saw that and I was very shocked by that. I mean, young guy, was he 67? And, grew up watching him and Bob Cole on Hockey Night in Canada, done broadcasting for so many years. I thought Sean had an incredible tribute at the start of Kenny and Rennie yesterday. So I was really stunned. And there's some good clips going around. What was it? Dion Phaneuf falling backwards and he just laughs. Was he trying to fight Jarkko Ruutu or Patrick Waugh trying to hot dog and show off the glove? That's been spoken. I remember watching a game once. I don't know if it was the Oilers in the playoffs, something. He's like, they got Mo on their side. He goes, momentum, and I had a good laugh for that. So I think he's doing games on Sportsnet, this year. Very, very, very shocking and very sad to hear the news. And the Jets pulling out the tribute last minute there. Yeah,
I mean, just turning it around anyways. That was it was first class by everybody involved. And just on Millen, I remember, I think my first exposure to Greg Millen actually was through hockey cards. And again, at that time, you're not able to see all the teams. I mean, television was so different than what it is now. And I think I remember seeing maybe a Penguins card. He was there with the Whalers as well. But then I really remember him as a player with the St. Louis Blues. And I guess I'm just looking at this. Yeah, he went to St. Louis in the 84-85 season and played with St. Louis through the 1990 season. So there would have been a lot of games we would have been going to in the old barn back then. Certainly, the Jets were in the Norris division for a number of those years. So playing a lot against St. Louis, and Greg Millen was the guy that was getting the starts more often than not. Then finished up with the Nordiques, Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, his final stop, playing 10 games in the 91-92 season, and then an incredible broadcasting career with Hockey Night in Canada. So to all of Greg's friends and family, we certainly express our condolences on his passing. I guess that's going to do it for us today, Remo. I can't wait listen, these shows the next 2 days are going to be so much fun. But honestly, if I could just fast forward 48 hours and get to Thursday night and this Jets-Dallas game, I would do it. But I guess Dallas still has some work to do of their own, and that's tonight against the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, we'll be tuned into that one. Maybe Vancouver will try to play out the season strong and, put together an A+ effort against Dallas. Although, look at Dallas, the way they've won these games. They keep getting outshot and outchanced, and it's the finishing for them. They have so many good lines. Mikko Rantanen's, found a home there. Wyatt Johnston having a great season. Matt Duchene, point per game player. So they've, again, very, very good team, but we'll see how it goes. I do think they'll miss Heiskanen. Come playoff time, he's a huge part of their team, and they're doing their best to weather the storm there. But Dallas, I'm looking forward. We got 2 days here to hype this up. Very exciting, and we'll talk about the whiteout parties more tomorrow with Kevin Donnelly from True North Sports Entertainment. They got some experience putting these together and a couple new wrinkles for this season. So exciting time. Playoff fever is here. You said buildings selling out, and everyone's going through the closet, getting out the overalls, the white hats, the pom-poms, the face paint, all that stuff. So it's very, very exciting.
People are ready to go. And I'll tell you what, the Jets were ready to go last night. And just like the Washington game, just like the Vegas game last week, just like last night, they've been ready for the big moments. This is a big, big moment on Thursday. And tell you what, they play like they did last night. I think we're going to be having a very, very fun edition of WST on Friday if they can get the job done and get that win and come that much closer to locking up the Central Division. As we mentioned, the job is to win the Central and to get the number 1 seed. If they do that, they're probably winning the President's Trophy unless Washington sort of runs the table. So we'll have more on the Jets as they practice and travel to Dallas tomorrow. And then, of course, a big game day edition on the show. Is Ken on tomorrow, Reem?
Oh, Ken. So Ken is going to go Friday after the Dallas game. Ken
yes.
And Craig Button. And then tomorrow we have Kevin Donnelly and Brandon and Feinberg. And then Thursday we'll get pumped up for the Jets-Dallas game. Owen Newkirk from the DLLS Stars YouTube channel podcast. I know some WSTers were popping in on the post-game show there. The last time the Jets played Dallas, he'll talk about what it's been like following the Stars the last couple weeks. So him and Jeff Thursday. So you've got a lot of great stuff coming. Big week. We had the NCAA last night, Frozen Four coming up. Jets as well. Baseball starting up, and the Masters. I haven't even touched on the Guerrero. We mentioned it briefly yesterday, but what a massive contract that was for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, now it's time to get some hits for the Blue Jays. The one thing that's sort of been missing it was chilly last night, and I know that Vladdy kind of needs a little bit of time to warm up for the season. But hey, they got the win last night, 6-2. They're at it again. Early start times right now in Boston. I was kind of surprised when that game started at 5:45 yesterday. But that is what it is. So tonight, Jays Red Sox, if you're looking for a little baseball, Easton Lucas and Garrett Crochet going at it on the diamond, and a huge slate of games. I saw Connor just mentioning that Vegas Colorado game. Be locked in on that one. Partner parlay today. We've got Ottawa, we have Dallas, and we have the Colorado Avalanche. As I said, I'm going to throw this out for the play of the day. I like Detroit, too, as a road dog, plus 118 in Montreal. That's going to do it for us. Huge thanks to all the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day, and to all of you for hanging out. Great times in the chat today. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Podcast listeners, thanks for hanging with us. Have a great night. We will see you tomorrow as we continue to count down to Thursday night, Jets and the Dallas Stars. And we'll get ready for Thursday at Augusta with WST fan favorite Jeff Feinberg. Have a great one, everyone. And we'll see you tomorrow right here on WST.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.